Welcome to Between the Lines, powered by J-Teen, the podcast where we talk about the issues that really matter, and very often, the things we don't like talking about. We're going to talk about relationships, we're going to talk about emotional health, challenges, and the daily struggles that we can all relate to. We lift the lid off some big topics that should be discussed, but very often are not. And we're going to talk about some questions that people have sent in that are really hard but need to be spoken about. So with me today is a friend of mine, but you've got a few hats on. You are a...
Not one at all right now. That's the truth.
No, but you should maybe, as a rabbi, maybe you should have.
Ah.
Rabbi, you are a therapist extraordinaire. Rabbi Dov Cowan, thank you for joining us. Are you ready?
Totally. This is an absolute honor for me to be here sitting on, it's not the couch really, it's just the chair opposite you, Yaakov.
Therapist chair rather than the couch.
Yeah, I'm actually literally on the therapist chair opposite you. So it's a real honor to be here with you and really looking forward to today's episode.
Okay, can we dive straight in?
As they say, yalla, let's do it.
Okay, I want to read out a text
Sure.
that a girl messaged into J-Teen some time ago, which actually sort of affected me. And after we've had thousands of messages,
Sure.
They don't tend to do that so often, but this one did. And then I want to also read out something that someone who I've worked with in the past specially requested, can I mention this on the podcast?
Sure.
This is what she said, this text message. My dad's at a wedding tonight and I can't stop watching the clock. I never know what version of him is going to walk through the door, laughing or shouting. The worst is when he acts like nothing's happened the next day, but I'm still shaking inside. The only time I feel safe is during the 3 weeks, no simchas, no drinking, no pretending that everything's okay. And this is a young girl who is worried about what's going to happen after her father's been out at her simcha and drank more than probably he should have.
Right.
And then I want to read out the person who I've worked with says like this. He says, I'm in recovery now, but it started in yeshiva. Friday nights at the rabbi's house, just a l'chaim. But it was never just one. It was normalized. It wasn't called drinking. It was called ruach. By the time I was 20, I couldn't daven without a buzz. No one stopped me. They smiled and poured another. I don't blame anyone, but I do wish someone had told us, Kiddush doesn't have to mean chaos. I'm working hard now for myself and my family, but I worry that my son sees in shul. I want him to grow up knowing that being a man means being present, not plastered. And my question to you, Dov, is, do we have a drinking problem in the community?
Okay, so just a reflection for both of those messages that were sent to you. You know, these are hard hitting. Even for me, listening to that as well, seeing what I see in the community, and reflecting on those questions. The answer is yes, we do have a problem. We certainly have a problem. But the reality is, I think there's a problem in the whole country and probably in the entire world. There's a problem in the country with binge drinking. With young people just going out and, drinking far too much. You go out, they talk about on the news about, the pub closing hours, the amount of A&E, space that's taken out with people who are drunk, who are acting,
You never want to go to an A&E on a Motzei Shabbos.
Yeah, the worst time to come. So again, bring it into our community. We reflect that as well. There is a drinking problem. What is a problem? A problem is when you can't have a relationship with this substance without it actually having an effect that you feel like you need it, that you feel like you're addicted to it, that you can't, as you mentioned there, get a buzz or get a high or get a connection without taking that shot or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 shots. And this is a huge issue. I mean, there are now more and more of these minyanim popping up on Friday nights where it's a l'chaim beforehand, which isn't a l'chaim, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4. I was recently at one of these binyanim and I saw a boy 16, must have been 16 years old, and he's standing there, there's no one around, bottle of whiskey, 1, 2,
Really?
3. I went over to speak to him to say something. And again, I mentioned maybe that's enough, but 4, 5. Where is he learning to do this? Where is it learning that it's okay? So I think that it's more of an endemic issue that we feel oftentimes that we can't be present. Like you mentioned there, we can't be present. We can't enjoy ourselves. We can't let ourselves be looser and more relaxed without drinking the whiskey or the vodka, what it's going to be. And it's partly an issue because we've grown up, as you know, with Kiddushin, we've grown up with this sense of having a l'chaim.
But hasn't it changed? Like in the old days, I feel like my daughter sometimes says I'm from the olden days. So in the olden days,
it was black and white.
You graded,
we lived in black and white, me and you.
You graded a kiddush by the cake, maybe the herring.
Yeah.
Now it's how old is the whiskey?
Right.
I definitely think things have changed over time.
I think certainly things have changed. I think that it could be that nowadays there is this overwhelming sense that there's a lot of pressure, I feel, in everyday life. People feel very pressured. And they often see that, say, Shabbos or a Yom Tov or a meal, that's the decompression chamber. That's the place where I can just let go. It's been a hard week. Friday night's the perfect example, right?
Yes.
You had a hard week, you've struggled, you straight, get to shul, 1, 2, 3, and now I can relax. I can only relax with this. Now, drinking is only a problem, as you know. An addiction is an addiction when you can't live without it, when you can't be present, you can't actually live without that drink.
Yes,
okay, but I think the stress and strain of life is causing a lot more. I think that people are living frenetic lives. They can't actually have a moment to themselves, and I think that could be the answer potentially as to why nowadays it's becoming more of an issue.
It's like soothe it. It sort of just soothes the nerves.
It numbs that pressure and there's a lot of it going on, as we know. There might be relationship issues, and it just calms things down.
But I think from this guy, what this guy's saying is maybe it's more something even a bit more sinister, because it's not only that people sort of almost self-medicate from using alcohol, which they always have and probably will. I mean, it's in some ways the cheapest antidepressant, but comes with a price to pay. But it's more that is the community almost like glorifying it. It's becoming, it's like almost you're cool if you go to a kiddush or your Friday night, you finish a bottle of wine.
100%.
No question. That's when it becomes, what's the next generation seeing?
I mean, okay, I'll say 2 things on that. Firstly, let's go backwards. What's the next generation seeing? So one of my clients came to me describing how, he'll very often, not at night, but Shabbos day, kiddushes, getting drunk. And he just mentioned by the by, he said, and I was thinking my kids are getting older. And he was actually mentioning that in terms of he's got to start thinking more seriously about life because his kid's getting older. But then I stopped and said, well, forget your kids getting older. Just have you noticed that your kids are watching you? When you're staggering home, when you're, maybe not able to control yourself properly. Like that girl's mentioned in that text. Like your kids are watching you, your kids are noticing you, your kids are seeing this. Look, as Jews, let's be honest, we have a very strange relationship with alcohol. One day a year, right? Suddenly it just... we go full in, right? And so we have a very strange and awkward relationship with alcohol.
But it's not one day a year anymore.
Right, of course. It's becoming Purim. When I was a kid, Simchas Torah somehow became a day that everyone gets absolutely hammered.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's now every Friday night. It's every Shabbos day. And I think that's really the main issue we've got going on here.
But how do you, let's say, as a Kiruv rabbi,
yeah,
you'll often have whiskey tasting, whiskey Friday nights, because that ultimately brings in the punters, as they say.
100%.
How does one balance that?
I think that it goes because I was
because the shul's making the kedushin.
I was going to say, because the other thing I want to mention before, the other thing I was going to make a point of is this. For example, this idea of a kiddush club, which in itself, like you leave shul, you head out during the Haftorah, whatever it's going to be, and we're going to go off and drink some whiskey because I can't stand to be in the shul. I can't stand to be in this environment. It's too much for me. It's already been here for like another 20 minutes. I've got to get out.
Yeah.
I think, listen, with all these things, as Jews, it's harder for us because it'd be easier if it was forbidden. Like many things, as we know in Judaism, it's not forbidden. We're given the choice how to engage in something and how to be able to relate to it, and we have to be able to learn how to trust ourselves. I think what it's about is that alcohol can be a nice thing. When you have a little l'chaim between people, it can loosen things up a little bit. It doesn't have to be always dangerous. It's just, I think when you have a more sense of, again, let's get very existential for a minute here. When we have a sense of purpose, when you have a sense of meaning, when you have a sense of understanding, like, what am I here for? What's this relationship with my wife or my kids about? What's my relationship with God about? What's my relationship with my family about? And when I feel comfortable and secure in that place, then I can be in a kiddush with a kiruv organization or with a shul. I can have a l'chaim, I can have one or two, and I can say that's enough. I don't need any more than that. I don't need to go over that threshold in order to feel okay with myself. It comes from obviously something deeper within, and hopefully people will, if they are going too far, will have the sense to reach out and say, look, enough. I can't do this anymore.
Well, sometimes, unfortunately, very often they themselves might not be aware of it. It's a lovely Shabbos morning. It's a lovely kiddush. We're just letting loose.
Yeah.
As you can see from that text message, too often it's the people at home that don't. Like, I've spoken to people that there's no dinner, Shabbos lunch, because he comes home and he's he's out of it, off to bed, and that's the end of the meal. We don't see what goes on
100%.
sort of when these people. So it's not that people necessarily are going off to AA because every night they're drinking. It's the fact that ultimately we measure, the problem not necessarily by whether you're addicted or not, but the impact it has.
100%.
And we are seeing, and that is where I think the rabbis in the yeshivas, it's not just this fun, let's have a bit of ruach, because there'll always be a proportion of those kids and bochrim who will end up having a very damaging relationship with the alcohol. But even the sort of the central middle ground, you're now teaching them habits that are going to have an impact in future life.
1,000%. And again, like we're touching upon here about, addiction, full stop. Alcohol addiction causes, so many breakdowns in relationships. Again, if someone is feeling like they're addicted, this is, in itself, such an issue. People need to know how to reach out and get the relevant help. But you're right, Yaakov, 1,000%. I think those people in positions, whether it's in yeshiva, whether it's in a shul, being able to lead from the front. Whether it's a kiddush and saying we don't need to have X amount of bottles, you can have a few. But we don't need to emphasize constantly this idea of alcohol-centric gatherings. A l'chaim or two, learning how to engage,
have a healthy relationship with it,
and speaking about it, and actually talking about it openly. Why not? Why can't more people be speaking more about it? I think people could and should be saying more.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if there's a girl that's saying that she's scared about her dad coming back at night, maybe we've crossed that threshold now. Maybe we've crossed that point, and it's no longer about we can do, we'll deal with it. It's gone too far.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Dov, can we move on? Because we've got quite a few questions.
100%.
And people are waiting.
Let's do it.
Okay, here's a question that was sent into the JT status. I am a 36-year-old woman, and I've always prided myself on being the strong one in my family, in my marriage, at work. But lately, I've started feeling completely disconnected. I don't know what I like or what I want, or even who I am outside the roles that I play. It's like I've become a human doormat for everyone else's needs, and I've gone missing in the process. Where do I even begin to find myself again? And I guess it's really a discussion about what do you say to someone who's completely lost their self, their identity? How do they start sort of reconnecting to themselves?
That's a great question. And I would say that the first point, the beginning of everything here is going to be about trying to learn how to stop. Just to stop, even for a short amount of time. Stop, look and listen. When you were a kid, remember? Stop, look and listen. Green Cross Code. Yeah. You stop and you look and you listen to yourself. Now, this lady sounds like she's extremely busy, and who isn't? Everyone is leading frenetic lives, especially sounds like the mother of the house. Everyone is using her for what she needs. But if we don't have a moment to stop and clear away some space to even just discover herself a little bit more, then nothing's going to happen. So point number one I'd say is, I learned this from a great rabbi called Rav Noach Olowek, who you may be familiar.
Oh, yes.
He talked about something called a staff meeting. And I love this. I'll share it with you, everyone who's watching. A staff meeting stands for some time away from family. And you schedule it somehow in your diary, if you have the ability to schedule a staff meeting. And I'm talking about an hour. I'm not talking about even half an hour. Let's say it was 10 minutes. Let's say if you can find 10 minutes in the morning or even before you go to bed at night, of 10 minutes just to be in a closed space, just to close the phone, just to sit with yourself and to breathe and just to take stock. Because if we don't stop, if we don't let things just settle a little bit, we'll never be able to hear our inner voice. We'll never be able to hear what's going on inside. And I think so. First of all, is like trying to find some space just to land in a staff meeting, right? Some
to
time
be able
away.
To,
yeah, and again,
it's like a timeout.
And it's
really.
very easy. Me and you sitting here talking about that. Great, yeah. You try and.
I can imagine. My wife's going to be really happy hearing about all this.
Yeah, no, because it's so hard to do that. And as I said in the,
I think especially for the people, let's say, at home who are at home a lot.
Kids, this, that, and the other, and
it's quite full on, quite relentless.
Totally full on.
But I think like this for this particular lady, it's also about like one's own identity. Too often we we create our own identity, our own roles.
Yeah.
And you become sort of she's the giver.
Yeah.
She's the one everyone relies on, and you just assume that role.
Yeah.
And everyone also assumes that role, so they rely on you.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like it becomes a bit of a lonely place because you're just giving,
yeah.
and you don't feel that you can ask.
So 100%. So I think again, first things first, you have to eke some time just to be able to consider and think and ruminate on this. I know it sounds very easy. I know actually how hard that is. But step 2 is to find a few questions. Now again, you can find them maybe online or whatever. A few questions to ask yourself about trying to self-discover.
Yeah.
Questions like, what are the things I used to do when I was a kid that I used to enjoy? What are the things that gave me just a sense of enjoyment and fulfillment that maybe I used to do before I was married? I think write it down. Like some things. Is there a time or place that I could find to re-engage slightly in those things? What are the values that I care about? What are the things that and it could be that a person might not be able to answer that initially because it's so busy, so much going on in the brain, but just come back the next day. What are some of the values that
yes.
I hold?
And I guess
what are some of the things that I'm doing that give me value even today? And maybe we speak as therapists often about this, the judgments we give ourselves. So this lady, I'm sure, is judging herself because she feels that she. Well,
she's probably attaching her value and her worth based on you're here to give. Your purpose is to help everyone else.
Exactly.
And that probably could have been messages that she received when she was young. It's very interesting actually because again we always get like before Pesach on J-Team we get quite a few younger people, typically will usually be girls who will be dreading Pesach, and that's because. They basically assumed almost like the mother role, and they now have to. They're the ones that have to help and bring Pesach in. And sometimes throughout the year, you'll see younger people who are forced to become, And although we want people to help, of course, we don't want the children to be sitting there. But at the same time, I think parents have to be really careful that they don't give those labels to their children that you are here. Your purpose is that you have to be the helper in the house. Yeah. And everything else doesn't really matter because you're here just to help. Yeah. Because then at some point you get this lady, she resents it. She wants to 100%. Live a bit for herself or for other people to give to her.
Definitely, 100%. And I think that what can happen is you just go so long doing that is the case, you've just forgotten yourself. You're like in a maze and you don't know where you are anymore. So again, step 1, if you can, to try and just eke out 10 minutes, if you can, a few times a week, just this is my time, a staff time, whatever it's going to be called, yeah?
Yeah. I call them time out.
Time out, whatever, everyone's got their name for it. But then it's about what are some things that I used to always enjoy and give me value. And then again, if it's possible, to say, these are things I need to do, whether it will be going for a walk, whether it will be listening to music, whether it will be writing now again, people are very busy, but it's so vital, just even incrementally, small little bite sizes. Listen, as they say, a change somewhere is a change everywhere. If you can change your life even slightly, 5 minutes a day of writing down your thoughts, journaling, 10 to 20 minutes a day of, switching the phone off and maybe just breathing mindfully.
It's like a bit of like self-care.
I was about to say self-care is the word.
Yeah.
And
it's become a bit of a buzzword, self-care.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people take it to the opposite extreme and it can almost sound a little bit selfish. Like, there's chaos, everyone's falling apart. I'm really sorry. I now need to go and have my, my sort of weekly massage. I think for each person, it has to be appropriate.
That's true. You don't have to go to a 3-day pamper retreat to be self-care. But I think it's really important. And if this lady's listening, whoever's listening, we shouldn't judge ourselves and feel bad about looking after who we are and what we've got. The analogy is very well used, and people have heard it before. But on the aeroplane, when they say that the mask comes down, the instruction is always put yours on first before you put on the kids. And unless we're putting on those masks occasionally to breathe, to be present, just to plug in. Again, it doesn't have to be for too long, and we shouldn't feel selfish for doing that. People should not feel that it's selfish to take a little bit of time for themselves, because ultimately it's giving to everybody else in a much better way.
I love that one with the mask.
Yaakov, I've got a question for you. These lovely I'm just loving it. Everything about this podcast. I've got the between the line card with a question. It says like this. So this question, Yaakov, came in on the status. Let's hear maybe what you have to say, how you'd respond. I'm 29. I've had social anxiety for as long as I can remember, but most people don't know that. I get through work meetings, laugh at the jokes, say the right things, but inside I'm dying. My chest is tight, my mind's racing, and all I can think is, they're judging me, I sound stupid, I'm not enough. I avoid weddings, I panic before phone calls, I haven't stayed at a shulkadish for more than 10 minutes in 3 years, which might not be a bad idea based on what we said. It's not that I don't want connection, I do. I'm just exhausted from trying to hide how anxious I am. And the idea of therapy, it sounds like just another place I'll have to impress someone, another person who might see through me and judge me. I feel completely trapped. Okay, so that's a really lots of information here, but this guy obviously, social anxiety. How would you answer such a person?
Well, social anxiety, who doesn't have it in the Jewish world? I think, and the truth is, it's not just a Jewish thing, because whenever there's community, there's often much more anxiety and worry about people. I know people, and what are they going to think of me?
Yeah.
And many people have it. And we, as from this question, we wouldn't really know who does it, because you would expect somebody who's going to be very shy and quiet.
Yeah.
That they're going to be really worried about people judging them. But as you can see from this, it could sometimes be the loudest person in the room. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, it's that fear. It's not that someone with social anxiety doesn't like people.
Yeah.
It's the danger in their mind. That's the anxiety, is the anticipated danger of someone who's going to give them a negative judgment.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting because every interaction, there's the person, and then there's a whole world going on in their mind, which a regular person might not be able to see.
Yeah.
But on a day-to-day basis, I see so many people who struggle with social anxiety.
Right.
And the irony is that it's actually, as this question articulates it so well, it's quite bizarre, because someone with social anxiety is expected to go to a therapist to talk about social anxiety. Yet my problem is that I find it very hard to talk to people and to strangers. Yeah. And therefore, going to a therapist is very hard. And I often say that in a kind of way that the minute they've walked through the door, you've already achieved one step. You're now sort of facing a fear.
Of course.
But ultimately, and I think we could all do with doing this. Maybe at Kiruv Ravi already, you automatically do this yourself. But it would be great if we all because social anxiety is like a prison, and we're trapped because of what everyone's thinking.
Yeah.
It would be amazing if we could all sort of let this guard down and just try to be a bit ourselves. Because really, the greatest selling point that we have is often our real selves. It's not this image. It's not trying to be someone. It's not putting across a certain impression. Just it's us. People will connect to us. People don't connect to a facade.
Yeah.
And so I think for me in therapy, it's often about sort of breaking down those barriers, letting someone actually just break free, go into a shop and be willing to ask somebody, I don't know, if someone who's working in the shop who's standing near the milk saying, do you know where the milk is? And yes, that person might think that's a bit weird, like you're right there. Is that okay? Can we cope with somebody thinking something? Why do we need everyone to hold us, give us
exposure therapy?
Yeah.
Asking for milk, I like that.
And just being willing to make some mistakes and allowing people to say, yes, do you know what? I'm just being myself and I don't have to always worry what everyone's thinking about.
Yeah, it's interesting, reflecting on what you're saying. I feel that a lot of the clients that have come to me with social anxiety, amongst other things, I feel, and I'm interested to know if you have the same observation, that oftentimes their presumption is that everyone else is doing great. So they will say, that one's cool, their life is amazing, that one is, and me, I'm, what have I got to offer, or what have I got to say, or I'm so stupid, or what do I know, or I'm not as successful. And I'll often say to them, you have no clue, what everyone is going through in their lives. If there was some machine where when you were walking, you could actually see everyone's thought bubbles, and you could look inside how they're feeling, you would be very surprised, how many people out there actually are, having struggles. It's not a good thing, not something we're happy about, but and I wouldn't say it to make, I'm not coming along to say, oh, you're like everyone else, it's fine, because people don't often like to hear that. But what I will point out is that your presumption, your landing, your launch pad on your feeling is that everyone else is fine and I'm not feeling great. I'm not feeling that I can project myself. I'm not comfortable in my own skin. But I think there are a lot of people that actually feel that way. And sometimes it's very comforting to someone to know that. I don't know if you found the same way.
Well, that's one of the purposes of doing the podcast is to really show we've all got our... there's nobody, it's one of life's realities. Everybody is going to have challenges.
Yeah.
And you can't, and everyone's going to have certain pain. Now we all do our best to maybe hide it, and to we don't want to walk down the street and airing our sort of all our failures.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we don't need to try so hard to sort of put out this perfect.
And I think this is an issue specifically in the Jewish community. I think being part of the community has so many pluses. We wouldn't give it up for a second, but because we're in this tight-knit space, there's so much more room for comparison. There's so much more room, in especially parts of the education system. It's in academia for sure, but especially, people who can learn, people who can't learn so well, people who are successful in various aspects of their Jewish abilities, and people that can't. We do tend to judge each other so much more.
Yes.
And this is like our sort of Achilles heel. Like we're sitting here, it's the 9 days. Then we can mention that, you can edit that out afterwards. But that obviously with the playoff beards that we're sporting. But like this whole idea of sinas chinam being the thing, it's not new. It's not a new story for us. But it often is stemming from this sense of judging myself against another person. And because we live as a community, we don't live as islands.
And I think it's such a shame, because what ends up happening is you have many people who have massive potential, but never really allow themselves to just express it, 100%. Because you're always in that sort of that being careful and
what
cautious.
What will
they say? I mustn't do this. I mustn't open this business. I shouldn't try and create this project because of what people are going to say. And because of that, lives end up going at 60% rather than what they could have done, because we're just chained down.
Sure.
And I think part of what we'd love to do for this fellow is, and this is, each person every day can work on something. They can go into a certain situation. They can and just say, you know what, I'm just going to be myself. I can go into a simcha and I'm not going to try and work out what conversation I should say and what do you think is going to impress them. I'm just going to give my piece, whether it goes down well or not. And even silences, many people panic about silences. I don't always have to be the one who sort of has exciting things and keeps the conversation going. If there's a silence, there's a silence.
It's true.
And so be it.
Do you find sometimes it's quite good for people to know this, and maybe we can, by saying this out here, it's good for people to remind themselves that let's not forget that what are most people thinking about most of the time?
Yeah, I know what he's going to say.
They think about themselves.
Yes, yeah.
So for example, I got a guy that came to me, and he's so petrified of being a shaliach tzibur, of like being the guy who leads the prayers. Why? Because he's so scared if he makes a mistake, he'll be judged for it, so he won't do it. But have you noticed that as yourself, often in shul, it's a minyan, and like someone has to go up and no one will do it. Like, can you take over? Mm-hmm. Can you take over? Why? Because for whatever reason, we don't judge. But the funny thing is, oftentimes it's because they were so scared of making a mistake because they'll be judged.
Of course,
but the reality is, how many times have you been in a shul and the guy's made a mistake? And you just completely, you're still thinking about yourself, the things that
you think it's how,
you think
or
about
you're
yourself.
half asleep.
You think about you're half asleep, so you don't notice yourself, and
Yes,
someone makes
yeah,
mistakes because we think most of the time about in our own heads. So
Yes.
it's sometimes refreshing for people to be reminded that we spend most of the time thinking about ourselves, and when people do things, they muck up, we move on very quickly.
100%.
I think it's good for people to be reminded of that.
Exactly. We're sometimes so preoccupied about what people are thinking about. We don't realize that actually people aren't thinking about us. But it's reminded me of a friend of mine, Storley Schneck, who is one of the people behind the new referral centre in Stamford Hill. And what he specialises in, often treating people that are really end of life. I remember him telling me that, you have these people that have, when you're lying on, I don't know what a deathbed looks like. Please God, I shouldn't know for many years, but you're lying on that bed.
Yeah.
It's the end of life. All these people that you've spent ages worrying about and thinking about what they think of you and I can't do this because of that. Are they there? Like, you're lying there at the end of your life. Those people that you spent your whole life worrying about, they're not there for you.
Right.
I remember him telling me that. It really hit me. It's like, yes, most people have spent their time worrying, but actually it's so arbitrary because it's pointless but at the end of it. And I think the challenge is to sort of get out of that Kahila bubble and worrying about it and just expressing yourself.
Yaakov, another question here for you, and it goes like this. I grew up in a house where nothing was ever good enough, and now even as an adult I hear that same voice in my head. You're failing, you're not lovable, you're not enough. The thing is, it doesn't just hurt me anymore, it's hurting my marriage. I get defensive, shut down, or overreact when my husband tries to get close. How do I stop this voice from ruining everything good in my life? So the question really here is, straight to the heart of the matter, how do you help someone break free from a lifelong inner critic that's sabotaging connection?
Oh, Yaakov, the inner critic. Everybody has their inner critic.
The inner critic.
It's not something we can't stop the inner critic. What we can do is ensure that it doesn't have so much power over us. And some people have an inner critic that is quieter and only shows up at certain times. And it kind of like what we've already said, maybe it will say you're not good enough. Maybe it will say you're worthless or you're different, you're alone.
Yeah.
And these messages are often that people have internalized. It's one of the. I saw somebody this week. He's a lovely guy. He's talented. He is successful. His children love him. He's really got everything, and yet he feels like he's a complete failure because it wasn't even so much what his father would say to him the whole time. It was a certain look. Yeah. And he described to me this look that he grew up with. And even once he got married, the father still, it was this look of like, that the father gave him of like disappointment. And growing up, always hearing that message and the reaction of his father, basically has now created, his inner critic is now shouting every single day, years later, that I'm just useless.
Wow.
And it's so paralyzing.
Yeah, it's like it's once described to me as like a bully, like an inner bully.
Yeah.
It's in your head, like just bullying you down.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful way to see it.
And this bully can't actually, it can shout, but it can't actually physically do anything to us.
Yeah.
And we have to like stand up to the bully.
Yeah.
So if we allow this bully to intimidate us, and the bully says, "Oh, you're a waste of space, and you're not going to achieve anything. Just go back to your hole," and we listen to that, then the bully has power. So I like that analogy. But if we can actually talk back to the bully, and that's really a person to understand their inner critic, to understand maybe that this is a voice from the past. Maybe sometimes it's a defense mechanism. Sometimes it's easier for a person to call themselves worthless or a failure rather than someone else attack me. Or perhaps they're perfectionists that have set themselves up that nothing's going to be good enough. But once a person can understand where their inner critic's coming from, then it's really about literally talking back to the inner critic. It sounds a bit crazy, but you know how they say, if anyone, we grew up saying a sign of madness is anyone who talks to themselves.
Right.
For me, it's one of the greatest signs of emotional health. If you can actually talk to yourself and you can say, I could say to myself, Yaakov, don't listen to your inner critics telling you, or to the bully telling you not to do this. Thank you, Mr. Inner Critic. You go back to where you are, and I'm going to carry on because I know that you're just trying to pull me down, and I can do this.
Yeah, certainly. No, it's in the world of IFS, which is one of the things I've trained in, internal family systems. One of the things they talk about is these parts that that have a role, and oftentimes actually that part thinks that it's doing the best thing for you. Really reflecting what you're saying. That inner critic voice, in of itself, is a protector, and it thinks that you still need to hear that. It's got a job to do, and it's standing on guard. Like sometimes we'll give it a name, like I'll sometimes call it the chief of staff. The chief of staff part of you, or it's standing on guard, and it's there. It's doing a job, and I found sometimes when people, oftentimes when they look away from it, that's when the problem. But when, like you said, when you're willing to go and just look inside and ask yourself, what job does this think it's doing? What does it think it's doing for me? What role does it play? How old does it think I am? Oftentimes these voices got stuck when we were often 10, 11, 12, 13. It got stuck there. And now with 21, 25, 30, 50, 60, and it's still no one's ever told it to stand down. There's that famous story of the Japanese soldier after World War II that wouldn't stand down until they found his commanding officer. I think it was in the 60s.
Yes, it's years.
They had to get his commanding officer in the 60s to find him, to tell him you can stand down. But until then, from 1945 to 60, whatever, he's standing on guard because he thinks I need to be here.
Yes.
Right. And so, but those inner critic voices, they are so strong and they pin people down.
Yeah.
And it's about being kind to ourselves, to look into that dark space, to look into the eye. And to just to ask what does it think it's doing? Why does it think it needs to be there?
Have you come across the best friend technique? I love the best friend technique. So you can, and everyone can do this themselves.
Yeah.
So when your inner critic is shouting at you and saying, "Oh, you've messed up again. You failed this. You just failed your test or a work assignment, or as a parent you've just messed up." Imagine a best friend would come to you. Your best friend will say to you the same situation. "Oh, I can't believe how I treated one of my children. I feel like such a terrible parent." What would you say to the best friend? And not only what would you say, what words would you say, but what tone, how would you say it? So you wouldn't tell your best friend, "Oh, it's fine, don't worry." You'd say, "You're trying your hardest. Yes, you didn't do so well this time, but it's hard. You'll do better next time." And you'll do it in a really warm, compassionate way. And then the same tone and words that you would say if it was a best friend, now say it to yourself.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And as if it will feel a bit unnatural at the beginning, but it's treating you like the friend. If you can treat a friend, why can't we treat ourselves like that?
100%. And oftentimes, obviously, this voice, people are often perfectionists. That's what, and that comes out that they have to be perfectionists so that the voice won't be able to manifest. They have to be perfect. But reflecting what you're saying, it's oftentimes just saying, I'm a human being, I'm a human. And what does a human being mean? That we will have ups and downs, we will have failures. And that's part of the course. That's what it means to be alive, to have the ups and downs. And this voice, I'm never enough. If we would just get a little bit religious for a second, right? I guess from that Jewish perspective, we're always enough. Because if we are if we have that spark of godliness inside of us, then we are always really enough.
Yeah.
Because we're just connected constantly to the source of all, which is Hashem.
And we're just here to try. Ultimately.
And we're here going through the motion of life, the experience of life, with the ups and downs, the highs and the lows. And that actually is the default. The default is ups and downs. And not to judge ourselves too much, because that's part of, we feed into this self-judgment. So
yeah, absolutely. And just to give ourselves, basically, just cut ourselves a bit of slack.
100%.
And be kind, give yourself a hug.
Yeah. Do you give yourselves hugs, Yaakov?
Self-hugs. We should. I can be sitting here folding my arms, but actually, I'm giving myself a hug.
Right.
And I'm not giving myself a hug because I've done something amazing and we're shooting this amazing podcast. I'm just giving myself a hug just because I'm a human being and I deserve one.
100%.
Someone came to me recently who was struggling a lot with depression, things like that, and he bought himself something from the bakery, but he said, I bought it because I thought to myself, do you know what? I deserve it.
Yeah.
And it's such so powerful to do certain things, just little things. I deserve it. Right, Dov.
Yeah.
Are you ready for?
I was born ready.
It's like a game show.
Okay.
We're going to do a quick fire round.
Oh gosh.
You've got some questions you can ask me.
I was always good at Trivial Pursuit. That's I'm good at. If it's general knowledge.
This is a true or false.
Okay, let's do this.
This is no waffle. This is hard for therapists. This is true, false.
Yeah.
Cutting straight to it. Okay.
Wait, do I get to ask you as well? That's the
yes.
question.
You've got
Okay.
you've got your card.
Which
there.
card is this?
No, I think it's on the.
Oh, it's here. Okay, fine. Yeah, sure.
By the water.
Oh, okay. Then you're going to ask. Then we're asking one.
Yeah. This is true, false. If either of us disagree with the other person, then they can chime in. Otherwise, it just goes to the next one.
Boom.
Okay.
Let's make it happen.
True or false? Most relationship issues come down to communication problems.
I would say, it's false but true, true but false.
I can't come on, such a rabbi sitting on the fence.
Okay, I'd say it's false. I think most relationship issues manifest as communication problems, but I think what they really stem from is expectations about what relationships are. If you have an expectation, the relationship is going to be amazing every day, roses, everything's going to be perfect, and in the moment it hits a bump, everything falls apart. If you come in with that expectation, it's all gonna fall apart. I think that it really stems from issues that people carry into the relationship beforehand that manifest themselves as communication problems.
No, I don't completely disagree, but sometimes I do think that men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It doesn't always have to be deep stuff, but it's we have different languages. Everyone's got different language the way they speak. And I think very often some of the issues are caused by just communication, not really knowing how to speak to the other person. That's it. I rest my case next.
Okay, we can't go on. Okay, question, true or false? If a teen says they can't be bothered, they're probably just lazy.
False. False, because can't be bothered and laziness is this new thing. I'm actually writing a new book about it.
Okay.
It's learned laziness. So we're living in a world where everything's instant, everything is easy. We love comfort, we love instant gratification, and what's happening is that it's breeding a whole generation of people that can't take hard work. So the answer is they're not actually lazy, but they've learned a habit of laziness.
So it's false.
I can't remember what the question was, but yeah.
I agree with you. I agree. They can say I agree.
Oh, thank goodness for that.
I agree.
Right. Right. True or false? Therapy should make you feel safe, not shaken.
True. 100% true. You have to feel safe in that room when you're sitting with a therapist. If you don't feel safe, you're not going to be able to go there and actually really deal with what's going on. But I do think that there has to be a challenge. There's no challenge there. There's no sort of a little bit of grain of sand in the oyster. Can we say oyster in a Jewish podcast? If there's no grit if there's no grit in the oyster, then there's no growth. So there has to be an element of challenge, but safety 100% yes.
Okay, love it.
You agree?
Absolutely.
Good. True or false? People relapse in addiction because they don't want recovery badly enough.
Absolutely false. Addiction's really hard. Relapse is inevitable. And we often use the relapses as ways to learn about, why and what we can do better next time. So relapses are going to happen. It's not because I don't want to. Sometimes I'm just not ready or prepared. But it's part of the process, and we get up and we go.
Totally agree with you on that one. It is totally false.
Thank you very, very much, Dov. True or false? You can be more lonely in a bad marriage than no marriage at all.
True. 100%. You can be much more lonely if you don't feel supported, and you don't feel that you have a relationship. Marriage is about relating.
Yeah, but it's interesting because you are
a bad marriage.
You can be around. That's why we often see like loneliness is like a big thing. Even though we're living in a world of social media, everyone's got millions of friends and Facebook and followers and people around them and everything. And yet, if you're not actually connected to them, then
there's an expression they say there can be sometimes a place, a crowded room can be the most lonely place in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, question for you. True or false, Yaakov? The biggest reason people avoid therapy is because deep down they know it might actually change them.
I think false. I think people avoid therapy for lots of reasons. Sometimes it's purely a matter of cost. Sometimes it's because of all the misconceptions of the therapist is judging them and he's going to talk about all my stories around the supper table. It's fear of the unknown. It is a bunch of things. Perhaps one of them is that I'm a bit scared to change.
I would disagree with you. I think that people don't mind changing a lot of the time. In fact, everyone's looking for the button to change as quickly as they can. I think people don't want to be uncomfortable. And I think sometimes therapy can be just, I'm going to have to deal with stuff. And it's going to be uncomfortable and hard. And that's, I think, what people are.
But it's interesting because we do see, like with mental health, let's say things like depression, there's often a payoff. If I'm depressed, then everyone's doing things for me and I can take it easy. And people can even maybe make a collection and send money around.
Yeah.
That we do often see that actually for some people, a part of them actually doesn't want to get better, doesn't want to change because... Maybe it's back to the comfort.
Yeah, but then again, is that person going to be ready for therapy and be able to work in therapy?
If they start being able to see the picture in a holistic way, that although they're going to lose certain benefits, we often see, let's say, you can see certain people that were ill physically or emotionally for a long time and then get better. That does have it has a big
it could be. It could be right. I think a lot of people come to me, maybe just the kind of clients I've had all the time are looking just, can you make this as quick as possible? Where's the pill that I have to take? And just let me get to the place I want to be at ASAP.
I just want to be happy.
Just want to be happy and comfortable.
Yeah. Amazing. Dov, thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure.
It's been great. We'll have to have you on again.
I'd love to.
But it was a really great episode and thank you so much.
Thank you.